must mention that Rishi Sunak paid the French 470 million in 2023. I think 480 million in 2023 to use drones or whatever to kind of stop the boats. But there's no indication to me that the French have done anything about it, and I don't think they've got any incentive to do so. I'd be interested whether Reform would want their money back and whether they'd ask for it back, whether they'd have any way of getting it back. But what we had James Glancy on the show, who's a former Marine.
Yeah, I know James. Yeah.
And he said that we send a private team to Calais and we destroy all the boats over there before they can even come over. And we say to the French, look, this is how you do it. Get on with it. He also suggested putting the Navy in the Channel. What would you do in real terms? You know, I suggest, given what you said earlier in this conversation, I imagine you'd say something equivalent to the Rwanda deal, or maybe it would be a different
just
location.
to be clear, you could do things on the surface like that. You could have a bigger military presence. You could send teams over to work with the French or humiliate the French. But what I'm saying fundamentally is, if you remove the incentives, the boats will not come. If it is made crystal clear that if you arrive illegally, you go immediately to an island, wherever that island is, and there are lots of potential islands we can look at. But if it is made crystal clear that if you come to the UK illegally, you will not stay in the UK, the boats will stop coming.
Yeah. By the way, to support that argument, that's exactly what's happened since Trump was inaugurated at the end of January.
Of course.
Now, there's problems with Trump's, how it's gone with Trump in terms of deportations, but it is the case that border crossings on the southern border, the states, has completely plummeted because the incentive is gone. People know, there's no point in going.
Absolutely. And we had some evidence, however imperfect Rwanda was, and it wasn't the final product. But we already had evidence in the early days and weeks that it was starting to make a difference, that you were beginning to see people going to Ireland instead, or revisiting their choice. We have never yet had an effective detain and deport strategy in this country. Labour say, we tried Rwanda. We didn't really try a detain and deport policy. The moment you do have that, the boats will stop. The moment you start deporting illegal migrants in the UK, many others will go.
So that's the thing I want to touch on then. There's 1.2 million illegal immigrants. By the way, there's another...
Well, the figure's disputed, but let's say if you look at the public utility companies, water companies and so on, they would estimate it's somewhere between 600,000 and 1 million. Right. And a lot of those are in London. We've had that figure about 1 in every 13 people based on their numbers. 1 in every 13 people in London is an illegal migrant. Yeah, as I wrote recently. Well, as I wrote recently, London is over. Right, I wrote a big piece recently. So if you look at all the evidence on London, sexual offences, robbery, shoplifting up 54%. Property ownership down 20% on the early 90s. Rents are up 85%. London as a kind of concept, I think London is kind of done. It's over. It's declining. It's invisible decline. It's impossible to get into if you're a hardworking, normal member of the public. There's a wall around it. It's expensive. It's not worth it. It's riddled with petty crime. 70,000 smartphones were stolen last year. There was, I think, a rape every hour, according to the numbers, which is absolutely crazy.
Wow.
Sexual offences against women and girls have never been higher. Of course, nobody in the elite class would ever talk about this because, London is a symbol of diversity.
Sorry, let's say there's not 1.2 million, there's 600,000 to 1 million immigrants in Britain. How exactly are you going to get them out? What's the plan there? So we've seen in America, they've got the ICE, and they're going around finding these people. They've misidentified some of them. It's been a little bit of controversy here and there, but generally speaking, they've taken a lot out.
And many others have gone voluntarily.
Many have gone voluntarily, and the Americans have a remigration policy, not forced remigration. It's
voluntary.
Voluntary. They're being paid a bit like the Swedes. That's part of the system. But it's also the case that the numbers, Trump's success hasn't been as good. That fewer people have been deported in this amount of time than under Biden and Obama. So he's actually not got the success rate in the actual deportations. He's disincentivized the crossings to America, but the deportations has been much harder than he's regained.
Firstly, he's regained control of the borders, which is what we need to do.
Of course,
crossings
we need to do
down
that.
90%. In terms of deportation, I would probably want to see, I think I would advocate something like what Sweden has done, whereby if we were able to solve the border crisis, or at least do a good job at dramatically strengthening our borders, we're currently spending every year somewhere between 7 and 10 billion pounds on the small boat crisis, somewhere between 7 and 10. So to put some context to that, Labour's welfare discussion and the rebellion over Labour's welfare plans, well, those were designed to save us about 5 billion, like a very small number. We are spanking 7 to 10 billion every year on the small boat crisis. So if we can solve that, we could take a portion of that money, or let's say some of the 13 billion that we're still spending on foreign aid, and we could run a kind of policy that encourages the voluntary removal of illegal migrants. That's one thing we could do. Mm-hmm. We could also just start using the institutions of the state, reforming the Home Office, most likely abolishing the Home Office and coming up with an entirely new department that includes a specific focus on tightening up the economy and removing people who are working in the economy illegally. We could have much bigger fines on the likes of Deliveroo and Just Eat, who are allowing illegal migrants in this country to rent passes to deliver food. There should be enormous fines on those companies for doing that. As the investigation has shown, if you come into Britain illegally, you can work within half an hour. You go on the Facebook groups, you go on the black market, you rent a Deliveroo pass from another driver.
Wow.
And for that week, you run around delivering pizzas and everything, and you arrived in the UK last week. That happens. Deliveroo and Just Eat, right, should have enormous financial consequences for that, because they are supporting the breakdown of our social contract while also often avoiding paying tax or offshoring their tax into low tax jurisdictions. That is making a joke out of our country and social contract. So we can do a lot of things to make it much harder. And underneath all of this is this idea of a factory reset, and what we need in this country is a factory reset. When your smartphone becomes overloaded, tired, slow, it's a major source of stress. You've got too many apps, too many videos, whatever. You press the factory reset button. Our nation, the UK, Britain and England, has become slow, sluggish, inefficient, overloaded. We need a factory reset. We need to basically go back to where we were in terms of our legal and political architecture before the Blairite revolution in 1997. This isn't about rolling the clock back.
Some things need to go.
You
need to go further back.
Yeah, sure. We can talk, UN Refugee Convention and so on from the 50s. But what I think we need to do is say, I'm sorry, from 97 until today, we've tried this political revolution. It's divided our country. It's given us two-tier law, two-tier policing over our common law tradition and equality before the law. It's given us a divided society and a demoralized people. Yeah. It hasn't worked. So let's go back out of the ECHR, reform the Human Rights Act, reform the Equality Act, re-establish our common law tradition, equality before the law. Let's have a factory reset. We tried this, didn't work, evidence didn't support it. Now we're actually going to go back to what this country is all about. Free speech, free expression, individual liberty, hate laws go, with the exception of some laws in the 80s.
They had blasphemy laws then. So
sure, but we'll make it crystal clear, as some politicians have been doing through amendments. We're not having blasphemy laws in this country. More recent hate laws go, non-crime hate incidents go.
Clear it all out.
Nobody's going to prison for what they write on social media. It's
go back to
ridiculous.
Common laws.
So let's do the factory reset. Now, I think if you explained it to people in those terms, I think they would say, you know what, actually, on balance, I'd be up for that. We'd obviously ring-fence human rights, obviously ring-fence a Good Friday Agreement, obviously ring-fence some of the things that have been done post-97 that have been, useful. But what the Blairite revolution has given us, and what the Tories continued, mainstreamed and accelerated, particularly under David Cameron, but also more recently, what that revolution gave us was a political, legal system and a prevailing culture that has pushed this country into everything we see around us today. All of this decline, the chaos, the carnage, almost all of it, I would argue, has been encouraged and cultivated by that Blairite revolution.
Thanks for watching this clip from The Winston Marshall Show. You can click here to watch the full episode. And for more clips like this one, don't forget to subscribe. And as always, be well.